Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. We're back with a Dance with Dragons. I don't know what I was going to say there. I think I was going to say a Dance with Crows. Dance with Dragons. And first, I'm sorry we took so long. We were just like chatting and sorting out some bits. I made a mistake with the schedule, so I have to correct that first. I have actually changed it in the description box down below, but for some reason I skipped 5 whole chapters. So the plan was to end next week, but we'll actually probably be ending on the 22nd, on the 20th or the 27th. We may split up the last 6 chapters. Yeah, I think next week then we have the sacrifice to Tyrion 12. So we've got shame in there, and we've got the ugly little girl and the sacrifice and Victorian, so that'll be good. I should say hi to everybody in the chat. Reese is here, Sept is here, AJ, Connie, Lady Dreamfire, Sunny, AU, and did I say everybody? Bran, I think, was there. So thank you guys very much for joining us. I'll just briefly address the elephant in the room. If you saw my video during the week, I'm fine, but I just want to say thank you so much to everybody who's reached out to me from the community. Yeah, I'm definitely going to try and keep doing this as long as possible, because I definitely need it. It's a big thanks especially to Eleanor and Johnny, who reached out to me, and Johnny in particular. I will probably take you up on your offer of doing live streams if and when I need them, because I'll probably have a lot of long dark days ahead of me. But and thanks to Clare as well, and everybody in the nail polish community. But I'll be talking to them again about that. So it does mean I will have to cancel Nashville, unfortunately, which is so annoying, because it was perfect. It was on my birthday. But anyway, my health comes first. My health comes first. But definitely. I'm determined to make ThronesCon in Manchester. So I'll still be there to annoy you, Claire. Whether I'm bald or not will be another thing. I might be like one of the House of the Undying or something. Oh, maybe I should. I'll go as cosplay or something. Quaith. That would be perfect. So yeah, AJ, I did close the comments because I was putting it on 3 different channels. So we just kind of put the comments on the podcast channel. So that's where I'll probably talk about it, if we're going to talk about it, when we're going to talk about it, all that kind of thing. We're still in a little bit of limbo at the moment, but less cancer talk and more George R. R. Martin talk. Happy New Year to everybody. And next week I am going to be seeing Kit Harington in London, I hope, next weekend. So I think I'll be allowed to go to that. And so I'll probably be still on a little bit of a Kit high this time next week, Claire.
Okay.
Even with his ugly mustache. I don't know if you've seen it.
I have, yeah. It's very kind of like Second World War.
Yeah. I don't know. Anyway, yeah, we're going to see a Tennessee Williams play and the Sam Shepard play, so I'm very excited. All right, so tonight we are discussing Tyrion 11 to the Griffin Reborn. So that's chapters 57 to 61. And I don't know if it was just because, you know, life is hitting me hard at the moment or what. I feel like these are the least interesting set of chapters we've had in a while. I don't know how you felt about them.
I'm glad you said that, because I thought even though it were right at the end of the book and you'd think that there would be some exciting build up here, there are a couple of filler chapters that I thought, oh, it's a Quentin chapter, here we go. This, oh no, it's not. I didn't realize there was an extra chapter before we get to the action. And that happened a couple of times this week. So yeah, it was a bit slow.
Yeah, it was very, and also I was just kind of like, now in my head it's always like, life's too short. So when I was reading through the Mirror's Knot, I was like, can anyone please just hurry this along, because this is just, I mean, Barristan, I guess he's trying to figure out what's going on, but I don't know if any of it matters. That's where I'm struggling with the Mirror's Knot at the moment. But how are you, Claire? How's your Christmas and all that?
I'm great. I'm fine. I'm looking forward to seeing you in May in Manchester for Thrones Con. I'm really excited about that. Very busy at work. I've got inspections and things like that happening, so it's a very busy January. It's a long month, isn't it? January. It just seems to just go on and on and on forever, and we're only on the 6th. So yeah, I'm looking forward to everything that this year brings.
Me too. And I should say, actually, because I know she's tuning in, hi mother, I am wearing the t-shirt that she got me. She got me a Daenerys Targaryen t-shirt for Christmas. She got me like glasses over here. They're whiskey glasses, but I've put like little candles in them. And she got me a wine glass and like coffee cups and wallet holders. Like, I put a picture on Instagram, so I got well spoiled for Christmas. But yeah, so let's jump into Tyrion 11. Tyrion. Yeah, where do you want to start? I mean,
I did think it was quite sweet that that the pale mare, that the Yezan, you know, the yellow whale, it turned out that he actually wanted peace with Meereen. He was actually quite a peaceful guy. So, you know, it's this chapter, I think it was an interesting one for me, where you can't make sweeping generalizations. I mean, yeah, you know, he was a slaver and he had a menagerie of slaves. So you can look at it and go, maybe he wasn't that much of a decent guy, but he seemed to favour peace more than he did just waiting for this slaughter that was to happen when the Volantines arrived. But I also thought, for me, the big thing that I got out of this chapter was, again, this kind of philosophical, it's not even a question, but a philosophical conversation about slavery, the concept of slavery. And just there seems to be these kind of hierarchies within slave, like amongst the slaves. You know, you've got other references to things like certain slaves are favorites, and then you've got this whole thing about, well, if a man has the right master, it's better than freedom. You know, there's so many different complex, nuanced layers and levels to this whole concept. And this is, I think, where there's a very big difference between, yet again, we're 5 minutes in and already we're talking about the difference between the books and the TV show. But there are some, like, I don't know what you call them, they're just like little bits of interviews on YouTube with the actors about the character story so far. It's a season 8, you know, getting your appetite ready for hyping up season 8. And I watched the Daenerys one, and the actress Emilia Clarke was talking about the progression of Daenerys' story, and she was kind of, again, she's an actress, you know, she's making these sweeping generalizations about, oh, you know, the slaves are waiting for Dany to go over and save them. And I thought that's a real TV show way of looking at this concept, which is actually very multi-layered. That it's not necessarily do they all want you there, and some of them actually, as terrible. I'm not saying that I'm a proponent for slavery whatsoever, but you've got to think about. I mean, previously we've talked about this whole, you know, Dany doesn't seem to understand that there's an infrastructure that needs to go in there to replace removing this regime, this kind of, you know, slavery as a political economic system. You remove something like that after generations and generations of this is how trade and economy and society is in these areas, and you don't replace it with some kind of infrastructure. I mean, you can argue that she tried slightly with some sort of like small council in Astapor and things like that, but this chapter fascinated me for that multi-level layer around what people really, and of course at the moment Tyrion, this is Tyrion's chapter, and he's a slave still at the moment, you know, at the beginning of this chapter. And again, the the description of the bells around your neck, and it was just like how Penny feels about it, and how Tyrion, just how Jorah even reacts to it, because I don't just think he's heartbroken because he's been friend zoned, by Daenerys. I think he is mortally horrified and offended that he's now a slave. So yeah, that was an interesting part of that chapter.
I feel like this chapter is. I feel like this chapter is a bit of a cloak and dagger type chapter for Tyrion's character. I think there are a lot of very important character traits on show here, and potential like foreshadowing for Tyrion's end game, perhaps, or where he's going, what he's willing to do, the lines he's willing to cross. There's a lot of treachery in this chapter. From the very small to the very big, like the killing nurse. Like Nurse was dying anyway. And I mean, you could say in a way it was a mercy what he did, but it's very, but then there's the Lannister treachery coming through all the time. I should say hi to AJ. I love the Carl Pilkington reference, by the way. Massive fan. And Bran, hi Bran, how are you? Anytime you want to bounce that theory off me, I'll be around. I'll have loads of time to kill over the next few months. And Septa says, I'm glad they kept the nuance of the teacher slave in the show. Oh yeah. That is interesting. That is an interesting thing, that like that certain slaves are actually highly trained as well. And Johnny says, hi Johnny, how are you?
Hi Johnny.
So yeah, I wouldn't call it mercy, lol. Definitely more ruthless. No, I think it is ruthless, but in terms of the death he was going to die, I think I'd be taking the soup. Because it's a pretty horrible way out. But you're right, it's still him being ruthless for sure. And I just think it kind of shows you. And especially with Ben Plum at the end, I'm not really sure. Like, whenever Syvas comes up, it seems to be a symbol for treachery and cunning. But with Tyrion, I don't think anyone should ever trust him. I don't even think Tyrion can trust himself.
It represents kind of things are maneuvering around this situation. So, like with I always forget his name, Trystane. And Marcella. There's lots of plots and things going on around, but they're focusing on the game. I think it happens quite a bit, and it's played quite a lot in the camp, isn't it? Outside Marine, it's very popular.
And it feels like it comes across as quite a difficult game to play, like more difficult than chess. But it kind of shows you that I think people at all levels of society are, like, the intelligence of people and their ability to scheme is grossly underestimated. And that we may see that, like someone like Davos, for instance, he may become quite an important, like, logical military commander later on. Like, there's a lot of logic. There's something in here now that I missed before. I don't know how I missed this. A dragon's eyes are one of its weak spots.
Yeah.
I missed that before. So will we see a dragon being blinded? Is this what it's referring to?
Well, I think that's how you kill a dragon, isn't it? Through the eye. Everything else is pretty impregnable, like the scales, even like the what you would imagine on another, like on Marwyn or whatever, the soft sort of underbelly. Even that is quite, it's very leathery, but I think that is the vulnerable place, is through the eye.
So it also, like, kind of Euron getting shot through the eye potentially as well, as kind of ties in that he might be some sort of iron-born dragon. But yeah, it's just, I wonder, is it the only way you can kill a dragon?
Oh no, I mean, you can. I mean, if I'm just thinking of Fire and Blood, which I was
Yeah.
telling Kat I'm about 3/4 of the way through and really enjoying it. But there's a lot of
so
stuff in there.
Up in John
Yes, there's a lot of stuff in there about how dragons are damaged and injured and killed.
Yeah, all the time.
And blinded.
Usually in battle, it's dragon on dragon.
Mm-hmm.
So potentially we'll get to see a dragon die through the eyes by a human being.
Mm-hmm.
But then I think we are going to have to see a dragon be killed by another dragon.
Yeah.
Now, whether it'll be like the TV show, whether we're going to have like a Night King, but I think the Night King dragon in the TV show will kill one of Dany's dragons.
Yeah, I think that's inevitable. I think. Yeah.
And I think maybe we'll get something similar in the book, or if we end up with an Aegon Dany fight.
Yeah.
Fire and Blood has changed my thinking so much.
Yeah.
I loved it. I love Fire and Blood. I'm so glad you read so much of it now. AJ says Brown Ben is also like linked with Syvas a lot. That's true. And they're all saying hello to one another.
I got that completely wrong, by the way. I think I'd mentioned earlier that I thought I can't see it happening, but I thought it was Brown Ben Plum who had asked for Pentos.
The tattered
but
prince.
It wasn't. Yeah. It was the tattered prince. Of course, he's from Pentos, and Brown Ben Plum is Westerosi. So, but I'm sure there's some sort of similar agreement though in Tyrion's. In his release chapter that they're playing Syvas, or maybe it's at the end of this book. When the moment happens, I'll go, that's what it was that I was talking about. Maybe both of them asked for Pentos, who knows? But interesting though.
Yeah, no, I have to say I'm really looking forward to next week's chapters, because I was zoning out, and I feel like this chapter and probably John's chapter were the most interesting of this week's for me. Even then, it's just kind of Tyrion being Tyrion in this chapter. It's like being humbled to the position of a slave has taught him. I feel it hasn't taught him very much by the end of this chapter. Maybe I'm wrong. Feel free to disagree with me. But
no, there's not a massive amount of progression. I did like the Griffin Reborn chapter though. That was quite interesting. But mainly just for, it's one of those chapters where you've read it 3 times, 5 times, but it's been a long time, and you go, oh, I thought that was only hinted. Right, okay, yeah, wow, that's really obvious.
Yeah. And also, he is quite a fresh voice, I feel. John. But so what else did you pick up in Tyrion's chapter?
Well, Tyrion, not for the first time, seems to be really pining for he misses Griff, and he misses the Golden Company and Aegon, and he kind of, there's this mentality of that thing that happened in the pit with the lions, that's as far as I'm going with that. I'm quite happy to now start making my way back west. I've gone as far east as I possibly want to go. I'm turning round and going the opposite direction. And he starts thinking about, wishing that he was in Westeros with Griff, and I wonder what he's doing now. And of course, we get to catch up on that in a few chapters after this one. But yeah, he's, Tyrion being Tyrion, he figured out the plan about the lions in the pit. He's trying to protect Penny's sensibilities, poor Penny. And he's pitching very strongly for the Second Sons, isn't he? So this is his escape. Yezan dies, and they make the way over to the sellsword camp, and Tyrion is making a very good case for, with all his flattery and humour and everything else that he uses when he's in a tight spot, he manages to kind of turn the tide a little bit, and it looks like he's going to be a second son.
Yeah.
Which, of course, he is.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like there is a warrior in there. Well, he might be the first son. Maybe. But I feel like he has this need to be a warrior based on who his father and brother are. he has this, like, he wants to maybe prove to himself that he's worthy of being a Lannister male, because the Lannister males are quite warrior-like. We don't really talk about it a lot, but they a lot of them are quite warrior-like. So especially Tywin and Jaime, of course. But yeah, that's all I had for Tyrion 11.
Yeah,
I have to say my notes this week are really lax.
Yeah, I've not got a great deal either. Yeah.
So the next one is John 12. And Jules, I forgot to say hello to you. Hi, Jules. Still haven't finished Fire and Blood. I've been dragging my feet with it. Well, we're going to start Fire and Blood in February, so maybe you'll come back with us and go through it. AJ says Ben Plum manages to banter back and forth with Tyrion and actually keep up with Tyrion's wit. Ben Plum, it's hard. Ben Plum is much smarter than people think. He's awesome. Yeah, I like him. I like him as a character, actually. Yeah. All right. So my question is, more than, I feel like the last few chapters with Jon, he's thinking about Ygritte an awful lot, and I'm not really sure why.
I think this is massive foreshadowing. He's dreaming of dead people, basically. It's not just Ygritte, it's also Corran Halfhand. He thinks about Robb. He thinks about, so he's probably, he's thinking about all the people that he's wronged in the past. And he's also, this is against the backdrop of him continually second guessing about whether or not he's making the right decision here. And he's a young lad. He's just going with his gut instincts at the moment. He thinks he's doing the right thing, but he kind of takes a deep breath now and again and goes, am I really though? And then that's when all the kind of ghosts come back to haunt him. But it's also a massive foreshadowing of what's to come with Jon. He's dreaming of dead people right at the beginning of the chapter. So,
And we have Varamyr Sixskins' son. Is it a son? Yeah. Shows up, and just the whole reference to skin changing, and, just to remind the reader, Jon has that kind of get out of death jail free card. So, okay. I'm trying not to jump onto my Fire and Blood thing. I'll try and go in chronological order. Tormund has some great quotes here. The others are closer than you think, and they only come out at night. And just this idea that you could all go to sleep and one of you will literally wake up dead and try and kill the rest of them, like, that's terrifying. It's almost like, and we talked about this before with his son and stuff, but it's almost like they don't have, like, the others are playing with them.
Yeah.
Or is it some sort of disease? Like, it feels very odd.
It's more like they're just watching, aren't they? They're watching what happens. For what end? Is it because they think they can rush through at the end of is it because they I can't help feeling maybe this is just a real obvious thing now, because the story is so old. We've been covering this and following it for such a long time that there does seem to be that feeling that, I bet that everyone who thinks the White Walkers are the bad guys, we're all going to get such a big surprise at the end of the story when we realise that actually they were the, benevolent force in the story, and we had them all wrong all the way along. And I think there are little snippets like this where, they only come out at night, but where Tormund says they're always there, they're always watching. Yeah. They could just destroy, they could kill them and add to their army of the dead, but they don't.
He also says, I don't want to say too much this side of the wall. Which is also kind of cryptic. I mean, I feel like, just, like, do it now. Like, what's going on? Like, he also says that Mance killed 100. And I wondered when. Like, over his lifetime, I assume, but if he killed 100 of them, like, I feel like Mance, like, huge immoral kind of thing to have killed 100 of them. over the course of his lifetime or whatever, and not like raise the alarm bells for the Night's Watch.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't know, maybe that was just one of those exaggerations, possibly.
Well, maybe it's the use of the word 100, because that's also something that we see a lot, not just the 1000.
It is, yeah.
So it could be that as well. And then the last thing that he says, he asks Jon, can your sword cut cold? Which made me think of ice, but then like Jon thinks, oh, you know, dragon steel, all that kind of thing. Cut cold is an interesting, like, unless you're talking about, you know, lunch and meat or something, cut cold meats. But I'm not like, yeah, it's an interesting, interesting idea, cutting cold. But yeah, what else did you take from the Torment?
Well, there's, I mean, the thing is with the wildlings, they are, Jon describes them in this chapter as Winter's people, and they are Winter's people. They're used to those extreme conditions of winter, but also they're used to the others being there. So it's I thought it's very interesting. I think there's a lot about wildling lore and history and traditions and culture that we've only really just scratched the surface. I mean, that about Tormund saying, I'll tell you when we get over the other side of the wall, is that because wildlings believe their thoughts can be, you know, they can have the minds read by the White Walkers, depending on, you know, the proximity again. Could that be another thing?
Yeah.
The other thing, well, a couple of things for me. One was I thought it was quite sweet that the wildlings seem much more agreeable about this situation than the Night's Watch do. You know, they're and what it comes down to is, you know, that they're in a situation where they're absolutely terrified, so they're going to go along with this as the, you know, it's not an ideal situation, but what else have we got? So they're going to go along with it, but they are mortal enemies. The Night's Watch and the wildlings are complete mortal enemies, and there's still this harboring of, like, you know, generations of resentment from the Night's Watch. They really don't like this idea of the wildlings coming through, and Jon can feel that, which is why he's constantly second guessing himself. But the wildlings are more jovial about it. They kind of like roll their eyes and like, oh, you crows, you know. There is a resentment there, but it's not the same sort of level of hatred that the Night's Watch have for the wildlings.
That's probably because they trust Jon.
Yeah.
And Tormund. Septa Shayna asks, what was the final tally in the Tyrion Plum matches? I don't know the answer. I'm sorry, Septa Shayna. And Connie makes a great point about Mance killing 100 others, or 100 whites, or whatever it was. She says, or he lied, Mance did. What did Mance use? Exactly. What could he have used? It's a good question. I mean, if it's whites, fire will kill them, right? So maybe, but yeah, it's a good point, Connie. And Asia says, this is quite an eerie chapter. The dream was creepy, and then the letter from Cotter Pike was probably the creepiest thing in the entire book. Terrifying. It is terrifying. And he's talking about Hardhome, and he talks about dead things being everywhere, and particularly what I was interested in was dead things in the water. And this is a slight Fire and Blood spoiler, but it's early in the book for you, Claire, so it won't spoil it for you. So I'm sorry if this is a slight spoiler. Jules, hopefully you're past this point. Do you know what I'm referencing from Fire and Blood?
In the water.
Dead things in the water, and what that would attract. We learn in Fire and Blood that will attract Krakens. Yeah. So that's what I was really interested in, because I was like, are we going to see
an ice kraken? An ice kraken. Wow.
Are we going to see Krakens up there now?
I hope so.
That would be cool. I really want to see Krakens. So, and in general, that like that little like thing in Fire and Blood is it like huge implications for the entire, like for anywhere on the coast in Westeros. Really interesting. Interestingly, the slavers don't want to take men with them. They only want women and children.
Yeah.
Which I don't really understand. Would they be overpowered by men, or are wildling men harder to keep? It's kind of convenient for George, I guess, because it means that he can have kind of a male other army.
Maybe it gives an indication of the location where they're going. Maybe it's the, you know, it could be lease, like training them up to be bed slaves or something like that. It could be just an idea, you know, gives you an indication of the origin of the slaver ships. But yeah, they're wildlings eating their own, and some of the ships have been taken. So they're down on the ships. This is really interesting, isn't it? We've had all this in the TV show. We've had the Hard Home episode, which was epic, actually. But I think this is going to be very different, isn't it?
I met one of the extras. We were doing the Game of Thrones tour in Belfast, and it's mainly your guide is an extra, usually, from the show, and they've been working on it since the beginning. Same in Dubrovnik, actually. And the first Belfast tour that we did, it was the Winterfell one, and the guy that was our guide, he was just a couple of days after doing Hard Home. He couldn't tell us what he had done, but he told us that it was like the most epic thing. And like up until that point, I think that was like when that came out, when Hard Home came out, it was the most epic episode for me.
It was, wasn't it?
It's just incredible. And he said it was just the hardest thing. Like he looked exhausted, but like he's an extra. Like they get to go and have lunch and stuff, and you're like, what kind of poor creatures are they going to be taking from Hard Home? Like, my God, it's so scary. AJ says it's mentioned in Arya's chapters that ships are being bought from Westeros with women and children that are being sold into slavery in Lease and a few other places. It's AJ says I still think it's the most epic. AJ, it's such a toss up from the Battle of the Bastards and Hard Home for me. I love them both. Hard Home I don't know. Hard Home, I don't know which one it is for me. I mean, they say that they've just filmed for season 8 the longest battle scene in film history. Yes, it is. So, oh my God,
I know. In the first couple of episodes as well, I think, you know, we're not going to have to wait long to see that.
I'll be fine getting through my treatment. I have Game of Thrones to look forward to. Like, it's great. It's coming along at the right time. Battle of the Bastards is your least favorite. Oh my God, I thought that was just visually incredible. Longest ever, AJ, in film and TV. They've never done. It must have cost a fortune as well. But so Cotter Pike, I mean, it's just ramping up in Jon's chapter as well, and we keep getting dropped. Like they keep dropping bits of information here, there, and everywhere. That's just tantalizing for wins, really. Jon's chapters at the moment in Dance, for me, feel like the closest to wins, if you know what I mean. Like they feel like this is the main. I feel like we don't have enough of that in Dance, and that's probably why we love Feast more.
Yes, definitely.
I'd be interested to know, guys, which do you prefer in the chat, Feast or Dance? Because we're definitely Team Feast. But then we're Team Brienne. I have my mum. Oh no, my sister got me the Game of Thrones calendar, and Brienne is January. So anything else for Jon's chapter?
The reference to the Horn of Joramund.
Oh yes, I forgot all about that.
Being 1,000 years old. Again, I don't think this is any coincidence, and I think it's perhaps getting a bit closer to maybe some answers. I really, really love this idea from Roarist, actually, of the combination of that running scene of ice running into fire and the creation of obsidian, or the creation of a barrier, the creation of a wall. and that maybe the wall that we have now isn't the first wall. Maybe there have been other walls in different parts of Westeros. And what happens is every 1,000 years, there's an attack because of some magical lifting of something or other, or just the circumstances are right, or every 1,000 years this magical event happens where this wall is breached and it comes down, and then the wall is rebuilt again. I mean, I don't know how old the wall is, how old they say it is in the timeline at the moment, but I mean, I know we have, you know, there are historical records of things in this world, in the real world, of things that happened 1,000 years ago, you know, hundreds of thousands of years ago. But you know, we have things like research and the internet and, you know, historical scientific evidence. They don't in Westeros. They have songs, and they have the Meisters controlling information. But maybe, you know, 1,000 years is a long time. 100 years, looking back 100 years is a long time. But in the context of where they are, and they can't necessarily get hold of historical records apart from things like runes in the Barrowlands and strange symbolic kind of, you know, what are any of them really, apart from maybe the Meisters who control information, confident about what the landscape was like, what life was like 1,000 years ago in Westeros? Because maybe there was another massive wall somewhere, and this just keeps happening every 1,000 years, and we just getting these clues of 1,000. So maybe in this chapter, we are led to believe that the Horn of Joramun is a bit of a fake. It's not going to bring the wall down, and that there's another horn that will bring the wall down. We all obviously think that that's the horn that Sam has got, but maybe the Horn of Joramun is 1,000 years old. Maybe it's the horn that brought down another wall, a previous wall, a different wall, maybe around the neck. Maybe that's why it caused, maybe that's where the floods came from. Maybe, who knows? But I'm just kind of throwing that in to support the, maybe something happens every 1,000 years that's reset, and human beings just don't have the context or the history to be able to go, oh, hang on, this has happened before. This is how it was defeated. I mean, we have these legends of the Long Night and things that happened hundreds and hundreds of years ago, but history is so bastardized in Westeros that who do you believe? The wiki says at least 8,000 years, the wall. Yeah. Okay.
But I think the thing about the wall is, remember where George gets his inspiration from? It's Hadrian's Wall. And Hadrian's Wall, like the bottom of it was stone, right? And it would have been built upon like with timbers and things like that. And it was more of a border. Yeah. It wasn't actually just to block people out. Like people were allowed to move their livestock across it, and like like there was gates in it. And I think that part of the problem at the moment is that the Night's Watch have actually broken the pact, because also I have my Night's Watch mug here so I can check. It's plural in their vows to protect the wall. Yeah. And I think one of the things that may have happened, I believe this, I watched a documentary and I think Hadrian's Wall was like almost like, I think, I could be wrong about this now.
Well, it wasn't the original, what, yeah.
Two walls, isn't it? And then they lived in between. Isn't that right?
One was higher than the other, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. And I feel like, because we know that the wall in our book is like wide enough for horses to go across if they need to. Yeah. So it feels to me like this is two walls that they have maybe filled in and iced up, because they're constantly adding to it. And I think that goes against the pact. But I've said this to you before as well. the trees that are coming towards the wall, some of them are actually touching the wall as well. The trees themselves sound like a wall too. Almost like the north, or the trees in the north are kind of developing their own defense against what the Night's Watch is doing with this wall.
If it was only ever one wall, or there'd never been any other walls, or there wasn't a kind of inner wall, or as you've described, something in between two walls, why on earth does it say that in the Vales?
Yeah.
There would be no other reason. If it is just a wall, one wall, that's the only thing that's ever been there, created for whatever reason as this barrier to keep the others out. Why do they say watcher on the walls, plural?
The other thing is there may be underground, there may be a wall.
Yeah.
Like there seems to be lots of tunnels.
I mean, I can imagine somebody say we've got to remember that the length of the wall is 300 miles long. That's fucking massive. That's like, we drove down to, we're in like the north, we're in sort of in between Manchester and Liverpool, and we drove down to Essex over Christmas, and it's about 220 miles. Took us about 4 hours to drive there in a car. No, slightly less than that, maybe.
No,
About 4 hours.
3.5 hours.
So on a horse, that journey from one end of the wall to the other is going to take you a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
It's huge. It's absolutely huge. So you could talk about distinct parts of the wall, Castle Black. You know, maybe that's the idea of the walls, that is that there are so many different parts of it because it's so long. But
yeah,
that's the only
I think though they've iced it in, they've added to it, and whatever has happened, I don't know, the Night's Watch aren't aware of this. I think this has just been lost over the years. Like nobody is reading the stuff that's at the Night's Watch. Like Eamon and Sam are the first to start reading, maybe Bloodraven as well. The other thing is, if you think about even in our own time, Gaudi's masterpiece Cathedral in Barcelona, isn't it Gaudi? Yeah. I mean, he designed that knowing he wouldn't see it. Like the average cathedral takes 150, 200 years.
Oh, is that Sagrada Familia?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like if a cathedral takes that long to build, and you have like several cathedrals, like obviously they're not as complicated and things like that, but the wall is giant. So it would add up more closer to your 10,000. Probably, right? So maybe not, but 1,000 isn't out of the question, but I guess when they're more manned and stuff like that. But I feel like there's something within the wall, and maybe walls within walls, I don't know.
I just got the feeling, my gut instinct.
I'm not reading AJ's comment, by the way.
The gut instinct I had when I read this in the chapter is, maybe the horn doesn't relate, isn't going to bring down, doesn't have anything to do with this wall. But because of its age, because of its spookily being 1,000 years old, does it have something to do with another wall? You know, it's interesting to mull over this thing about. I'm obviously on a quest to find out what the significance of 1,000 is, because I'm certain it means something.
I think George is trolling just you.
Possibly.
AU says it's a different named wall, like Winterfell. Maybe they're tied to protecting that. And I will read AJ's comment because he's from there, so it's safe. That's a nice parallel too, because the people from Essex are just like wildlings.
True. Somebody's just said that the people from Essex are like wildlings.
Well, he's from Essex himself, so it's fine.
Fuck.
Yeah, I agree.
So Connie says in Game of Thrones, in an earlier Tyrion chapter, he says that the men have told him that the trees in the last decade have been walking closer to the wall and that part of the forest. Yeah, there's references in a John chapter to them like touching the wall in places, or a Sam chapter, I think it's John though. And Connie says no one wants to go there to trim them back. Yeah. AJ is very sorry, but I don't think he is. All right. So, anything else for John?
No, I think that was it for me. Yeah.
All right, then we are on to, oh god, this chapter really was a slog for me, I have to say. The Discarded Knight. I love Barston, but oh god,
Is it in here to, you know, when you get your favorite TV show? I'm thinking of, like, you know, The Walking Dead, and you have like a bottle episode that's dedicated to a certain character, and it's like, oh yeah, this is going to be where the, you know, the demise at the end of the episode, because they've got into so much of the whole, you know, in this chapter is where he's thinking about his history and why he was, where the whole bold came from, you know, a bold boy and all that, you know, his history. And the fact that, you know, his age, he's 63, he only has to sleep for however many, you know, he doesn't need as much sleep as he's getting older, and that you get a bit of an insight into who he is and what his motivations potentially are. But I don't know, I mean, this chapter made me think about Selmy's, because, well, Selmy's loyalty potentially to Dawn and the Martells, because isn't House Selmy Dornish? Isn't he from Dawn originally?
Stormlands. I think we looked it up.
Oh, is he?
Last time. But bordering
have I made this mistake
Dorne
before? Yes.
No, you're right. You're right and wrong. No, he's Stormlands bordering Dorne though. So sorry, I just text my hand for a cup of tea. So yeah, I don't know if AJ's being sarcastic or not. These Barston Quentin chapters would translate so well to television. I'm guessing you're joking, because maybe the Quentin chapter with the dragon later on, but we don't see that here. Yeah, they're from the Stormlands, but it's part of the Dornish marshes. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, because he instantly kind of thinks Dorne with poison, which I guess isn't that surprising when we meet Oberyn. That's the whole thing with Oberyn as well. But yeah, so his star.
That's a bit of a stretch, though, don't you think? That's like, who there in that situation at the time would even know who the Red Viper was? You know, that's just playing into Quentin's insecurities, really.
Yeah, it's all anyway. It is. I agree. Filler. They are a bit filler, Connie. There has to be a purpose to this, because it must have something to do with Bloodbeard and the fact that Ben and the Tattered Prince there seems to be a division here, that they're not that peace isn't totally guaranteed here, and that might go in Dany's and Barston's favor. I guess that's what it's leading up to. There's interestingly, his star's loving power has gone all like kind of gangster on the thrones and everything. I just wrote a little comment to myself. I don't care about this chapter.
Harsh.
That's a bit harsh.
Cat.
No, I'm God almighty. There's a really weird conversation about mud and fire. And about how people will choose mud over fire. Mud kind of brings life and fire brings death. And a couple of things. This seems to me that it's setting Dany up to be a bit of a villain, potentially, when she gets to the muddy Westeros, if you like. But also, if we think about what mud means and who might be in the mud, or who might represent mud later on, that's kind of interesting as well, in terms of the lower houses potentially in Westeros, like the secondary houses that could end up climbing, like the Tyrells and things like that. Or not the Tyrells. It's Tyrell. Is that who I'm thinking of? No, it's not the Tyrells I'm thinking of. Oh, thanks very much. Thank you. The hand is here. Thank.
Hi.
I got my Stark mug. So yeah, just I've lost my train of thought. Lady Dreamfire. Hi, Lady Dreamfire. Happy New Year to you. AJ says, I was serious. Oops. Only because we get character development for Selmy, and we would have a focus on Marine that isn't Dany. Also, there's a plot to remove Hisdar and Quentin's dragon plot too. It isn't that on paper, or it isn't that hot on paper, I guess, but I think it would be better on screen. Great opportunity for visuals. Yeah, I guess so. I think there's just so many characters that you would have to develop beyond Barristan here, because he is trying to effectively play Columbo. Like, he's trying to figure out what's going on with all these characters, with the little information he has about them and the little he trusts them. He doesn't even really know why he's still allowed to be there. And I don't think anyone knows why he's still allowed to be there. They're all just kind of shooting at this in the dark. They don't seem to have any sense of what's going on. I felt like there's a bit of mirroring with Jon's chapter as well. It just feels a little bit disorganized and chaotic in a way, in terms of allegiances and references to animals and people moving around and things like that. And I really felt bad about Grolio.
Yeah, why him, the poor guy? I mean, that was just really sad and unnecessary.
Just sad and unnecessary. So Bloodbeard wants a dragon to die. All the dragons to die, potentially. Do you think, is there any chance we could see a dragon die in the East?
Maybe, but I think it'd be a waste of a plot. I think they're going to be used to fight. There's going to be some infighting, I think, and I think we'll probably need 3 for quite a while.
Yeah, I'm hoping they don't do that. Yeah,
but I do think of the 3, one of them is going to kill the other.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think I've got here that confusion about who the brazen beasts are. What's the significance story-wide of the masks? Obviously, it's because there's something to hide. Does that mean that there's going to be a look who was the son of the Harpy all along? Hisdar is, although he is being a bit gangster with all his surrounded by his pit fighters and everything, Barristan sees through Hisdar just being like completely shell-shocked, really doesn't know what to say, to the extent that he thinks about other kings that he's known and what their response would be in that situation. I mean, maybe Hisdar just really doesn't give a shit, but all of Hisdar's power, all of it lies in this story of Daenerys returning. It's Daenerys who has the power. It's through her dragons, and he's just riding on the coattails of that. Of course she's coming back. Otherwise, it's like, well, why isn't he saying, oh yeah, sorry, unlikely that she's going to be coming back. I guess I'm free to marry somebody else. And oh, by the way, I'm now the king.
But nobody has power without her. This is the biggest problem with Dany. Like, it's a complete power vacuum when she's out of the picture. And this is the biggest problem with dragons in general. Like, the Targaryens aren't long running the dynasty into the ground once dragons are out of the picture in Westeros.
Yeah.
So it's a massive problem that it kind of foreshadows Dany's doom, really. There's no real way for Dany. I feel there's no way for Dany to make it to the end.
No, I'm beginning to feel that way too. Yeah.
AJ says Barristan's out of his depth. Tyrion would suss it out by now. I don't think it will end well for Selmy. No, unfortunately, I don't either.
This is it's a character piece chapter for him, because we're going to be saying goodbye to him very soon. It's
kind of sad as well. Here he is protecting Hisdar, kind of. He's not even really sure, and it's like he's making comparisons to Ares and things like that. And he talks to Quentin, and Quentin is refusing to leave. He says to Quentin, "You're the prince that came too late."
Yeah.
And Quentin thinks that maybe he'll be Quentin the Wise. The prince that came too late, is that referring to Quentin or to Doran? That's what I was wondering about this.
Well, Quentin is Doran, really, isn't it? Mm-hmm. He's just there as his, he's basically there in his place.
Yeah. By the way, the actor that played Barristan Selmy, who I really enjoy, he's in a show which is now on Netflix called The Derry Girls. If you can handle the Northern Irish accent, it's brilliant. It's so funny. It's kind of like an Irish Catholic schoolgirl version of The Inbetweeners. Better though. Much better. Yeah.
Is he a comedy actor?
He is, but he's like this. He's the straight guy in it, but he's so funny. Tommy Tiernan is in it as well.
Right.
Just honestly, Claire, just watch it for the nun.
I will.
She is like, I want to be her. She's giving me life goals, I can tell you that. Jules says he'll have a way better death than on TV. Yeah.
Let's hope so.
Yeah, awful. Anything else for the discarded night?
No, it's just really kind of like, what did we find out about this chapter? Not much, really. It doesn't really tell us a great deal, apart from, like you say, the young Kish are just pushing. They're pushing and pushing and pushing, aren't they? What they can get away with. Blood pays for blood. But that was unnecessary. And, this guy wants the dragons dead. And I think that's going to link into, this is just maybe a bit of a setup for the next chapter. Yeah,
I feel like, for me, this is my problem with dance in general. I feel like the problem with Essos is I can't figure out how it's going to affect Endgame in Westeros. And that's, maybe I'm missing something, but I can't invest in this when it's Westeros I really want to see. They're the characters apart from Dany and Barristan in the East, and Dany will soon be gone, Barristan will soon be dead. There's nothing really to bring me back to the East,
Maybe this is just us feeling the strain of George's writing around this Myronese knot thing. It does seem a little bit like, what was that about? What does it mean? How does it fit into the story? But yeah.
And it'll probably all make sense in the end, I'm sure.
Yeah.
AJ says, to be fair, when I say good TV, I probably meant the chapter after this. This one was a bit of a snooze. Yeah, the next chapter is kind of short and snappy. But I really would recommend The Derry Girls. It's very funny. Really, really funny. All right, so the spurned suitor. Okay, AJ, I know what you're saying, and this isn't a better chapter, I'll agree, but I must have been in a very bad mood. I did write "so" and question mark and just underlined it.
This was a bit. I'll tell you what I've got for this. Quentin, he doesn't want to go back to Dawn empty-handed, which makes it seem as though it's like, that's a strange thing to think about a person, a bride. You went to win the heart of Dany. Going back empty-handed to me seems like, you're not taking a prize back with you. So it's that, like, what we think he was supposed to bring home, I don't think is what the actual mission is. And it kind of says here the prize is kind of via Dany, not actual Dany. So basically what he was after all along was a dragon.
Which is refreshing, because this is the first time we've been in the head of a suitor of Dany's. So, well, with the exception of Victorian, but somebody that she's actually met. But yeah, like, I mean, that's what, with the exception of Khal Drogo, that's what they all want. They all want her dragons. It's the same for every girl. Never.
But it's that but what's the reason? There's a lot of conflicting stuff in here. There's Quentin refers to the dragons as monsters. So, and again, you could look at that and say, well, this is a young boy. He's probably, you know, if your father had sent you on a mission and said, go and get a dragon, you would probably be shit scared at this point where you're about to, you know, here's the mission, the culmination of this project that his father set him. You might refer to them as monsters because you'd be shit scared of them, but there was just something, again, maybe it's just the way I'm reading it, but wanting to take a dragon, then referring to the said dragons as monsters makes me feel as though you're taking it because you want to destroy it rather than use it. Is it a weapon? But also he refers to, which is correct because of previous Daenerys, that the Martells, the Dornish, him particularly, as having a drop of Targaryen blood. So does this mean that really his father has said to him, go over there, son, try and warm up this, like, you know, pretty Targaryen girl. Let's be realistic, she's probably not going to fall for you, but you need to do whatever you've got to do to get, the mission is to get a dragon, fly back on said dragon back to Dawn, you know, arrive in Dawn on this, and it's just like, is that really the, I just don't quite get it. Is that what Doran sent him there to do, to fly back to Sunspear dramatically on the back of a dragon? I don't quite get it.
I don't know either, because this wouldn't be the first time the Dornish have meddled in taking dragons, if you like, as we know from Fire and Blood and World of Ice and Fire. So there's potential that they have maybe tried to breed dragons.
Yeah.
We also now know, thanks to Fire and Blood, where these dragons came from, where they date from, and it wasn't a secret. It isn't a secret, really. Like, it's not like it's like it wouldn't be that hard to find out, I don't think, where they came from. So it could be that they're not the only time. That's not the only time dragon eggs have been stolen. And if they tried to breed them, then maybe, I don't know. I'm jumping a lot, but there could be that the Dornish tried and they ended up with monsters versions of these things, or maybe that.
To be honest with you, the bit underneath the, you know, under the cellar at the wine sink with the tattered prince and him just ripping the piss out of Quit, which I thought was really quite funny. He just totally ripped him to shreds. And the transaction at the end, you know, you're being ridiculous, but, you know, okay, if you want us to help you steal a dragon, I want Pentos. Which just makes me think, does that mean that the tattered prince, is this a setup? Is this a setup? Did Doran know that this is leading up to some sort of arrangement between Dawn and Pentos?
I don't know, actually.
Is there some history there? I mean, Pentos is quite close to Dawn, isn't it? Geographically.
The problem for me, and there was, like, again, thanks to Fire and Blood, we know that there's lots of, like, cross-continental, you know, treaties and interactions, much more than maybe we get from A Song of Ice and Fire. I feel, though, I don't know, George, it feels like George is going to be a bit limited in his POVs in, like, fleshing this out. Maybe not. I don't know. AU, yeah, they are a euphemism, obviously. Dragons. And also, not AU, sorry, AJ said that. And AJ was saying Quentin Schmenton. Sonny says, Quentin is so unprepared for whatever mission he's supposed to be on. That's very true. Connie says, cold hands, I am your monster, Brandon Stark. So Connie, are you saying that the dragons are the physical manifestation of the monsters the Targaryens could be? I don't know. And AJ says the Tattered Prince is going to end up with Pentos. Yeah, I don't like. Good for him.
Yeah. He's probably earned it, to be honest.
Yeah.
But there's a question here about after reading all of this and thinking about the whole, Doran being the snake in the grass and the viper being the snake, and he plays the long game and he only gets involved in things if he knows he's going to win. He doesn't play around with the odds. It's like, is this a surefire win? So he's got 3 children. The 2 elder children are somehow linked with his plan for dragons. So we already know how important marriage alliances are, and this is the road that they're going down here. But the thing that I've got like loads of different computations here. So there are different possibilities that seem to be thrown into the mix. And again, this comes up in the next chapter in the Griffin Reborn. You could potentially have Quentyn marrying Daenerys. You could have Aegon marrying Daenerys. These are things that have all been alluded to and talked about already. Quentyn, Daenerys, well, he's a spurned suitor, we know that. Aegon, the 2 dragons, there's talk of, let's get her back to Westeros. You can marry her. There you go. We'll have a new Targaryen dynasty. There's also a possibility of Arianne and Aegon. It's like there's 4 different, there's Quentyn and Arianne, the offspring of Doran, and then you've got 2 Targaryens possibly in Daenerys and Aegon. But then you've also got thrown into the mix, somebody mentions in the next chapter, I think it's the Halfmeister, about Arianne potentially marrying Connington himself, Griff. So there's a whole load of things there that are all in the mix about potential marriage alliances, Dawn getting into bed with Dawn and the Martells getting into bed with the Targaryens. It just doesn't. The algebra and the maths of those different possibilities of marriage alliances is very confusing.
It's more malleable if you introduce polygamy.
Yes,
it has to be 2 wives rather than 2 husbands. There wouldn't be much of a point of Dany taking 2 husbands. Yeah. But you could end up with Aegon potentially trying to get Dany and Arianne.
Yeah, marrying both of them. Yeah. I hadn't even thought of that. Yeah,
that's something that we see a lot in Fire and Blood. Potentially even with Rhaegar. So, I mean, the line that sticks to me the most, and I think, I like it's been pointed out, I'm sure before. But it's so glaringly obvious, and I think this is the first time we've seen it being pointed out to somebody who's like in a leadership role. But I can't remember who it is. Someone says to Quentyn, Quentyn's going on and on about how they have to do something. They can't go back empty-handed because so-and-so has died and so-and-so won't get to have kids and all that kind of thing. And then this guy points to like a fly-ridden corpse and says, well, what about this guy? What about this guy that died? And the point being, people aren't remembered for their deaths. They're remembered for their lives. And what are you sacrificing for a death? It was kind of an interesting idea, since there's so much of the North now at risk of being dead. The idea that people won't be remembered for their lives, but well, that doesn't really count if you're looking at Stoneheart and Jon potentially, and the consequences of deaths in Westeros as well. Like Lyanna, for instance, like she's remembered for her death all the time.
Yeah.
But is that a bad thing? I mean, arguably yes, because it's not. It like in terms of like what people do, like what Robert Baratheon did.
It's almost like a pivotal necessity, isn't it? That that there are these characters, and maybe this is Quentin's. Maybe that's what he was born for, unfortunately.
But I feel that's not a very Doran mentality, because Doran doesn't care. Like, not that he doesn't care, but it isn't just about Elia and Oberyn. That he's not just fighting for them. I feel like he's fighting to preserve Dorne, to preserve the living, if you like. So I think for me, I think Quentin is acting off script a little bit here. I don't know if the dragon is part of it. I don't know if that's Doran.
We've got a couple of references of that, like stick to the mission, stick to the mission. You know, we've lost good men already. I don't want to go back empty-handed.
Well, that's or unless you want to go down the Preston Jacobs route of, is he still alive? Yeah. What is the Martell's goal, Connie? Yep.
Oh, that's a big one.
I hope that was a rhetorical question.
Yeah, that's a huge question. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
so anything else for the spurned suitor?
No. I'm looking forward to the next chapter, to be honest.
Okay.
I know it's going to be gory, the next, the next Quentin chapter, but yeah.
So the thing that stuck out to me in this chapter, I tried to grasp a star and overreached and fell. So romantic, but also quite Danish and Dawn-ish.
Starfall. Yeah.
It made me think Starfall. I tried to grasp a star, overreached and fell. Yeah, poor old John Con. He has got the serious hots for Rhaegar.
Wow,
it's not even subtle.
No, it's and this is the chapter where because I was talking to Kyle earlier, and I said, "Oh, we're just finishing a few chapters in Dance," and it's funny when you're doing rereads and you think, "Oh yeah, there's a hint of this," and was this alluded to? And wow, does it smack you in the face? He was totally in love with Rhaegar. Just the description of his flowing silver hair and purple eyes, and oh my god, the whole, he's trying to impress Rhaegar all the time, and he just wanted to be worthy of Rhaegar's love. So my notes are pride comes before a fall, especially with the thing about Stony Sept, and it's left strategically in terms of the battle coming up. This is another thing that I'd forgotten about. Quite how anti-Baratheon John Connington is because of Rhaegar and because of Robert Baratheon. This is something that he's kicking himself for every day, isn't it? Why didn't I kill Robert? Then Robert wouldn't have been able to kill Rhaegar. We would have been happily married by now in a civil partnership, and he loved my father's lands, all this kind of, but he is massively anti-Baratheon to the point where he's like, yeah, we now are going to take Storm's End. And it's like, hang on a minute, what's that got to do with Cersei? Why don't you join forces with, and it's like the concept of that, the very thought of that just that goes against everything that John Connington is about. But then you get Aegon flying in saying, yep, I'm going to do that, and I'm going to lead the attack, leave it to me. And it's just like, oh my god.
Yeah. It's funny, this Robert Baratheon, Rhaegar, Lyanna quadrangle, like, and also the way he goes about Elia, just like completely, Elia was not good enough for him, and it's just
he's so the jealousy and the pettiness. Yeah.
I'm kind of, again, with John Connington, I'm glad that we get his point of view as well. I'm sad though, because Lamore is gone and stuff like that, and him soaking his gross hand in wine. He's so gross.
Yeah.
In
bad wine, in terrible, horrible, bitter wine. Yeah.
No need to waste good wine.
Yeah.
But what is the end game for him, do you think?
Well, listening to the chapter, because I'm still on I'm reading Fire and Blood, but I'm still on the audio with Dance. He sounds like a decent enough guy. You know, he's trying to be fair to the household. He's he vows not to fail. You know, I failed the father, I'm not going to fail the son. You know, he seems quite honourable and decent of heart, apart from this black spot that he's got where he will not waver. I mean, talk about Stannis having this iron will. There's absolutely no way that, I don't know, unless it was to benefit and not fail the son. I can't ever see Aegon's forces with the backing of John Connington ever getting into bed with the Baratheons to tear down Cersei. I just don't ever see that happening. Yeah.
No, sorry, AJ just made an interesting point. It's easy to say that now, John Con. Robert nearly killed you, mate. He came stumbling out of a brothel, probably drunk, and still nearly killed John Connington. And injured, right? He's just recovering from an injury at that stage as well. Yeah, I mean, it does kind of give you an idea of the ferociousness of Robert Baratheon at his peak, for sure. And but also it does point to, like you said, an integrity and an honor there that's quite admirable, really, in John Con. LML apparently is wearing Rhaegar's wig on his live stream. That's so funny. I love all his headgear. Yeah, I agree, Connie. John pining for Rhaegar is like Robert pining for Lyanna. Yeah. They're just, the two of them were jilted.
Yeah.
Robert and John Con. They had actually a common something in common in the end, really. But anything else from this chapter?
Just the fact that how far they've advanced so far, it's been easy. It's all been very easy to take. Which just means that Westeros were very ill prepared for any kind of invasion. It means that you know, Cersei is just not thinking about these kind of things. And also, I think Robert, where are my notes here? I've put something about King. Yeah. Westeros woefully unprepared for invasion, both Cersei and King Robert before her, because he didn't seem to you know, there's so many people that have been like cast off into exile that if you were the regent at the time, you'd be like, right, just at any point, this really dangerous person and potentially a massive army of sellswords could land on these shores. Here's the contingency plan if that happens. They were just not ready for it. So I mean, obviously they're taking that to their advantage, Aegon and John Connington. But even at half strength, they didn't have all the fleet with them. They didn't have the elephants at that point. I know a couple of elephants came in at the end of the chapter, but they're taking things easily. I mean, the way that they took Griffin's Roost was just really easy.
AJ wants to know, what do we think of Aegon? Aegon, by the way, I like it. I like the character. I like this part of the plot. I think it's a good way to bring the war back down to this region, because I think otherwise George would get very bogged down in the Riverlands, in Old Town with the Ironborn, in the north, obviously. So it's a good way of kind of bringing it with like literally fresh blood coming up from this direction. I think it's
I I
think it's a good, yeah.
I like him. I think he's, you know, he's got pluck, hasn't he, Aegon?
Yeah.
What I'm concerned about is his relationship with Duck, which then immediately makes me think, who is Duck? Who is he? Because he's aligned himself. He's now Kingsguard, isn't he? He's one of Aegon's Kingsguard, and he's aligned himself to, like, everywhere Aegon goes, Duck's there with him as his, like, protector and what. So that's, you know, he's got himself into a very significant position there, which makes me think, who is this guy? So that, I think that'd be quite interesting to see if there's a reveal of, what's he called, Duck Rollington or whatever he's called. But yeah, that'd be interesting. And the Halfmeister as well. So he's getting up to speed, isn't he, with everything that's happening, all the history and the recent history and the wars and the goings on. He's kind of like, he's having a crash course in basically being a Meister in Westeros. Yeah, but again, it's the possibilities of all these alliances and allies and marriages, and the suggestion that John Connington marries into the Martells, which obviously he's horrified about that idea, not at least because he's gay, but also because he's kind of sticking his nose up in the air a little bit about the Martells because of Elia.
Oh, Rose there a little bit.
Yeah. But they could potentially be an ally, and obviously this is in Ariane's release chapter.
Yeah,
that's all about her going to that meeting, isn't it? So that'll be interesting to see what
it
happens.
is interesting. It does throw in like I think we're going to see that with Littlefinger and the Vale as well. Like it'll throw in an unexpected source of arms and alliances and all that kind of thing. AJ says, I see an interesting parallel with this story and Robert's rebellion. Back then it was Stannis who prevented Robert from losing his home and allowed him to win the rebellion. Now that Storm's End belongs to Stannis, Jon Con taking it might cost him the war.
Yeah. Well, he does take it. He does take Storm's End, doesn't he, in Ariane's chapter, because that's the shock. Is like, oh, wow, nobody's ever done that. Nobody's ever just marched in and taken Storm's End.
Wait, is Storm's End where the lie, because I think it is a lie, that Loras has taken it?
No, that's Dragonstone.
It's Dragonstone.
Yeah,
so I don't think Dragonstone has fallen. I think that's a lie. So it'd be interesting if Aegon got his hands on Dragonstone.
Yeah.
That would be, although I think that's probably where Dany will end up. I think that will happen like it did in the show. I used to think it was Dorne, but I think it will go like the show. So the opposite is happening to what the rebellion. That's a really nice parallel. Thanks, AJ. Connie says, like Missandei with Dany, trust, not trust.
Well, it looks like they're going to... in this chapter, they're sending out the plan is they have sent word to potential allies. So something's gone out to Dawn. We know that there was action taken with that because Doran sends Ariane on this mission. And other potential allies in the Stormlands. Well, now that they've taken Storm's End, that's pretty much, and Estermont as well. So all of that region, if they ally themselves with Dawn and they've taken over the Stormlands, that's quite a huge geographical area. But they also sent out word to potential allies in the Reach, and that just made me think that's quite interesting. I wonder where that will take. You know, if that will reap any benefits there, and who would be in the Reach to maybe that's you know, in the TV show where Olenna turns up in Dawn, and it's like, oh wow, right, okay, Dornish and the Reach are now allies. Maybe something similar happens in the books.
Well, if Loras Tyrell hasn't taken Dragonstone, where is he? And also, we also have like loads of families like Darry's, for instance.
Yeah.
You know, there's loads of families out there that are old school Targ allies. Now, the thing is, if it plays out that Aegon is not Aegon, right? Like most of us assume that he is Fagon. Will John Connington ever find out? Or will he go to his grave thinking he was protecting Rhaegar's child? Because that's the happiest ending John Connington can get at this stage. Like, or will George fully throw the tragedy at this guy and say, "Oh, now you're going to find out that that wasn't Rhaegar's kid at all"?
Yeah, that would be horrifically bitter with no sweet.
Yeah,
for him anyway. Yeah.
So AJ says an ironic twist of fate for Stannis to defend Storm's End now that he has it, to lose it to a foreign invader and end up costing him the war. Ironic and maybe karmic if he ends up doing what he did in the show. Jules says he loved Rhaegar so much and can't bring himself to even consider that young Griff isn't who he really is. His love for his Silver Prince is a sort of denial blocker. Yeah. Failure is not an option. Would no, this is a mad idea, but if John Connington, if it was revealed to him who young Griff was, or that he's a fake, would he kill him? Like, just like out of a passion, like just an instinctive. Like, would he fall on the sword and kill Griff? Like, it's just anything is possible in that. Like, he's so obsessed with Rhaegar.
Yeah, it could be, but
a passionate moment.
Yeah, AJ Loras is known to be at Dragonstone badly injured, but we suspect that that's a bit of spin there, a bit of that's not necessary. You know, the messages have. We don't think that he's injured at all. It's a tricky one, isn't it? Because it could be that he could just be like, it could be that, look, I've gone too far. I've known this boy since he was however young. Even if, you know, I'm just going to go along with this invented story that this is Rhaegar's son, you know, and only I will know, or whatever, you know, maybe it's revealed on a bigger scale, but I don't know how he would react. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Just on the Loras thing, AJ, yeah, we kind of, I can't remember why we when we were talking about it, we went through, there's a lot of red flags as to why that may not be the case, that Cersei is being led up the garden path. I think what may happen is if there's a trial by combat, and if Marjorie gets a trial by combat, Marjorie will do so because she knows Loras is fine. And whoever Loras fights, then it'll be a massive, like, upset for Cersei. Whether Loras survives it or not is another thing, but it would be a massive upset for Cersei. I kind of think he would. And AJ says, even if he isn't the real Aegon, which he isn't, it seems that he wouldn't be a decent king. I think they've done a really good job raising him. That's true. Maybe a little bit impulsive, but definitely he's not Doran. He doesn't like stand aside and let like.
Oh, he's a young man of action, definitely. Yeah.
But anything else then for the Griffin?
That's it, really. A very strange clutch of chapters, really. They kind of fit in together. The whole marine stuff with Barristan and Quentin. There's just 2 chapters of that. But next week is much more female centric. I think that's what I'm missing as well, and not but it is very male, this book, and that's not a bad thing. It's just, I feel like it gets bogged down a little bit by that. We miss our female protagonists in this book. So we have the sacrifice, which is Asha, right? Yes. Yes, Asha. Then Victarion, the ugly girl. So back to Arya. We've not had any Arya for quite a while. Cersei, which is that's it, isn't it? It's the Walk of Shame chapter.
Yep.
And Tyrion, a final Tyrion chapter.
Yeah. So so I've redone the schedule in the description box down below, and actually we may end up splitting the last week as well, depending on our schedules. Obviously, like I should be okay next week, but I don't know what's going to happen after that. I'm living in a world of uncertainty at the moment. So I'm not sure. And you have a pretty hectic couple of weeks coming up as well. So we may need to split the last week into 3 chapters and 3 chapters, but we'll see. But yes, so bring your bells for next week.
And
we'll walk Cersei on her road to shame, or on her walk of shame. So thanks everybody so much for coming out tonight. I was a little bit nervous, but of course everybody made it so much better. So thank you so much, and thanks Claire.
You're welcome. I'm looking forward to next week.
Me too. Yeah. All right, guys. I'll tell Kit you said hello, folks. Bye.
Bye.